Good morning.
Morning.
I am Ken Ballard, and I am here to share my testimony with you. There's two stories that I'll tell, and I consider them to be miracles, but you can decide for yourself. When I was 3 years old, I had a boil on my left knee. And old-time remedy was to cure that boil, put a piece of fat meat on it and then bandage it. And the next morning take it off and the cord would come out. Well, that's what happened. Except the germ went in instead of coming out. And so as a result, I spiked 106.4 fever, was in the hospital. The doctor came in the room that evening and told my parents it was about 9 o'clock. If we don't break this fever by midnight, there's going to be some bad things happen to his brain. Mm-hmm. So they put me in a dishwashing tub full of ice and water. There was a nurse on either side of the bed with a rag. They were wiping my head and my face and just continually doing that. 15 minutes till 12, the fever broke. The doctor said, well, we've got one step. He said, as soon as this infection settles in one of his organs, he's dead. So we waited for the infection to do what it was going to do. And it settled in bone in my leg just below my left knee. And that was the end of that. It's still, the infection is still there today. Okay, when I was 6, we'll kind of jump around a little bit, but all of this will come together. The last week of May, my dad had a flat tire on his shredder. And he took the tire off and brought it to town, dropped it off at a friend's filling station to be repaired. And on that Wednesday, he bought a brand new car. And it had cloth interior. So Saturday, June the 1st, we were going out to Schrader, to the ranch that he owned, and have a picnic with friends. And the friends called and said they were going to be late for us to go ahead. They'd meet us out there. Well, we went to the house and waited for a little while. They didn't show up. And my dad decided that he was going to go put that tire on that shredder. And I have an older brother, about 2 years, and we started begging him to let us go. Never been on a tractor in my life. So, you know how kids are, they're persistent. He gave in and let us go. So by the time he got the tire on the shredder, they still weren't there. And so we started begging him to let us mow. Let us ride the tractor, right, mow. So there was room on either side of the seat for a person to stand, and I was standing to my dad's left. while he was changing the tire, my brother had gotten off the tractor and he was standing under a tree with a stick drawing in the sand. And I said, come on, Daddy, let's leave David. And so we started mowing. And my dad said that he cautioned me about some low-hanging limbs that we were approaching. He said, be careful. And he turned his head back to drive. He said out of the corner of his eye, he saw a flash of something. And he looked around and I was gone.
Oh, no.
Well, you can stop the tractor, but you can't stop the blades on the shredder. They have to beat themselves down. So he was already in shock. And he got off of the tractor and he got down on the ground and he looked under the shredder and he saw me. Said I was wearing a white t-shirt. And he grabbed the t-shirt by the shoulders and pulled me out from under the shredder. And he took me over and laid me in the shade under a tree. And he got back on the tractor and he started to the house where my mother was. And he didn't go far. And he thought the tractor was going so slow that he could outrun it. So he got down and started running. And as soon as he saw my mother, he told her, bring the car and bring a sheet. So she met him on the way. And she said, what happened? What's wrong? She said, Kenny fell under the brush, went under the shredder. And she said, is he dead? And he said, I think so. So he wrapped me in that sheet, laid me in the back seat of the car, and he started, well, he stopped at the gate so he could close the gate. And when he did, I made kind of a groaning noise. I thought, well, maybe he's not dead. So we started our trip to Citizens Medical Center. It's 26 miles. We got there. They looked at me and they said, no, we're not equipped to handle this case. So they transported me by ambulance to San Antonio to what at that time was Santa Rosa Children's Hospital. When I got there were 5 specialists waiting on me. I had massive head wounds, massive arm wound. Was cut twice on the right shoulder blade, once down the right side and once in the lower right back. It missed my spine 1/4 of an inch. So when I went in the hospital, I weighed 72 pounds. And after a month, the doctors decided I could go home. So my parents took me home. When I got out of the hospital, I weighed 36 pounds. And there was a neurologist that had worked on me. And the next week, on Monday, he made the trip to Victoria to check on me. He knocked on the door. My dad answered the door, and the first question the neurologist asked him was, is he still alive? Is he coughing? Have any congestion? Headache? No. All of those. So the next week, the same thing happened. The neurologist came down. His first question was, is he still alive? And then he asked the other questions. Of course, the answers were no. None of that's occurring. So the third week that he came down, he asked the same thing, is he still alive? And by then my dad had gotten curious and he said, why do you keep asking the same questions every time? And he said, come in here and sit down. And he said, let me show you something. And He got a piece of paper and he got his pen and he started drawing the diagram. And then he specifically pointed out 4 separate injuries, and he said any one of these 4 is enough to kill him. And he said, and besides that, we didn't send him home to live, we sent him home to die. So, there we were. Well, I had a pretty wealthy uncle that lived in Dallas, and he just couldn't accept the fact that they couldn't do something about my vision. So he made an appointment. He made the trip to Dallas. Of course, he already had all the diagnostics and reports, etc. And he'd gone over. Invited my parents into the office. And the first question he asked, where's the corpse? I said, well, the corpse just went to the cafeteria with your nurse. And he said, there is absolutely no way that a human being can take the blow to the head that he took and live. And so there was no help there. But the doctor, I guess, was so intrigued with the accident, he took a 2-year sabbatical. And he traveled around the world with my medical records to the major medical conferences. And the consensus was no human being could survive the lick that I took to the head. Well, here I am.
Amen.
Since we're going by 3s, we'll go to the age of 9. That was the year that I was baptized.
Amen.
So, don't ever underestimate the power of God.
Amen. Amen.
And I would add one more thing. My dad insisted that I go to college. And he said, it's more important for you than it is for your brother because you're blind and you're going to need that extra help. So I enrolled at Glenn Junior College in Brenham. And I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a doctor of chiropractics. And so I needed one chemistry class. And I went over to Victoria College to see if I could get that class. I met with the professor, Dr. somebody, I don't remember his last name. And he said, you can't pass my class. I said, I can't. He said, no. He said, if you take my class, then you'll get an F. And I said, well, doctor, if you feel that way, there's no use in me enrolling. So, thank you very much. And I went back to Glenn for the summer and I took the chemistry course and passed it. I submitted my application to the medical school. Waited for a while, didn't hear anything, so I thought I would call. I called and the young lady answered the phone. I told her what I was calling about. And she put me on hold. She said, wait just a minute. After a bit, she came back, picked up the phone, said, you still there? I said, yes, I am. She said, we don't accept your kind. I said, do what? She said, we don't accept your kind. I said, my kind? She said, yeah. I said, what is my kind? She said, you're blind, aren't you? I said, yes, I am. We don't accept your kind. And at that point, I was truly devastated. Because she had picked on one thing that I had no control over. If she would have told me my grades weren't good enough, that told me. And that was a turning point because I was ready to give up college. I thought this is not the way I want to go. But I did end up going to Texas A&M and Stephen of Austin State University in Nacogdoches, Texas. And I got a degree in rehabilitation and a minor in psychology. So it can be done.
Amen.
Amen.
I thank you for your time. If you have any questions or want clarification on something, if you just catch me by the arm or tap me on the shoulder, say something, I'll do my best to try to answer your questions. In the meantime, I pray you have a safe and healthy and a prosperous week.